And I think that's the key for everyone that wants to stick around and be relevant perpetually, is we've got to be prepared to pivot and do things different. We can't be dinosaurs mired in the past, expecting that what made me great back in 1987 is what's going to make us great in 2025. That's just not how the world works.
I just had a good friend. He wanted to couch direct sales in a different time. Said like, hey, how many years have you been doing this? He said, what if we just measured it on how many conversations? You know, I've been in it for, I don't know, about 10,000 conversations.
Yeah.
How long have you been in it? Oh, about 400. So then we know. You could be in it for 400 conversations and been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, across the board in every organization I've been in, those who've had the most typically are making the most money.
There is a saying that we all know and often live by that is a lie, right? And that is practice makes perfect.
Right. What?
It's not
You're
true.
blowing my mind.
Yeah, perfect practice makes perfect.
Right. That, you know, she was going
Do you know
do
how
a
scared
DIY
I was
Instagram.
when I organized and hosted my own fashion show?
Oh.
Right, where we had a catwalk, like a runway, and models all coming in.
Would show us what they were doing, actually, Ben. Would you stand up and please? Would you tell us, show us exactly how
Let
that
me get
worked?
up there and strut my stuff right now.
What is your model law?
Yeah.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Longevity Lounge. My name's Ben. I'm your host, as always.
And I'm Caylee. I'm your co-host. And today we have Mac Larsen joining us.
Oh my goodness, it's great to be back in the lounge with you guys.
We're loving it. We're loving it.
It's a lot of
You're
fun.
here.
Yeah. So, as you know, longevity is all about not just living longer, but also living better. And within that, it's couched physical wellness, emotional well-being, financial security, social community, engagement, purpose, meaning, just living the best life that you can possibly live, right? And that's why we love longevity. It kind of gets to the heart of living just a great life. And today we're talking about entrepreneurship. We're going to drive a little deeper into that subject and talk a little bit more about digital marketing. One of the things we talked about in a previous episode, which just kind of got our cogs turning a little bit, was a challenge that many people face when it comes to long-term success. And that is something that worked a few years ago and got great results may not work and get great results for them today. Right. And there's an abundance of examples with that. Right. Look at Netflix versus Blockbuster from years ago. Right.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, Friday night, going to Blockbuster and picking 2 or 3 different videos off the shelf, and that was just the way you did it. And now you've got millions of shows at your fingertips, streaming into your home all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and Ultimate Electronics, we could go way back in time, but even some of the most recent ones, even though Toys R Us is making a comeback, it was gone, and it's gone from most markets of the world. And yet that's where I dreamed every holiday season, every year. I just wanted to go to that store and just dream and imagine, what if I could get even one thing from this store, and just the childhood memories you have, and yet it's gone and other people have taken their places. Where do my kids go to dream? Right. And they're online. To be honest, they go online and do all their research about what football cards they want, or, they're dreaming in a different way. They don't always have to show up to a store and walk through its halls and be like, oh, I love this, or I want this. So many companies who haven't innovated, right?
Yeah.
And changed. And then remember in a previous episode, Rob, we talked about Walmart, and they were on death's door from an online sales perspective, doing really well with their stores, but Amazon was going to kill them.
Yeah.
And yet they pivoted, right? And now they're still the largest company in the world when it comes to retail sales.
Yeah.
So they are one of those few stories that came back and said, we can do this.
And I think that's the key for everyone that wants to stick around and be relevant perpetually, is we've got to be prepared to pivot and do things different. We can't be dinosaurs mired in the past, expecting that what made me great back in 1987 is what's going to make us great in 2025. That's just not how the world works.
Yeah.
Right. So
But I do miss having a toy catalog to circle all the things I wanted for Christmas.
Yeah.
Yes.
The good old days.
I agree.
Yeah.
Hand it back to my parents. I'd like all these things.
Yeah.
We're going to need you to narrow it down, Caylee.
We used to cut them out because we didn't trust my mom and dad to go through 300 pages and try to find them. And so we cut it out and be like,
awesome.
no, I have a collage for you. So maybe I was a little too arts and crafty growing up.
Yeah, now we just find loads of things in our shopping cart
Yes.
on Amazon.
Add it to the
It's
Amazon
just
cart.
added. All you need to do is just click pay.
And
Yes.
remove your credit card information because the kids know how to buy it now.
It gets there fast, right? It gets there fast.
And you know, Ben, look, when we talk about entrepreneurship, and I love this is such a fun conversation.
Yeah.
You actually decided to dive in.
Yeah.
And started your own brand, you know, with
Yeah.
a partner and everything. So walk us through that, because I think this is a great story, especially if we're going to get into that digital marketing, because you don't have brick and mortar, right? You're doing things a little bit non-traditional as what we were all raised, right? You go to the store to go buy something.
Yeah.
How's it going? I mean, tell us a little bit about that. I think that's an interesting story for everyone.
Yeah, and the genesis of that was really coming from a business perspective, right? So I'd worked in direct sales for a long time, had a very successful direct sales organization, had tens of thousands of people in my organization that were all over the world, in Europe, in North America, in Latin America, had a big business. And was constantly talking, obviously, in that space about entrepreneurship, about how to build teams, how to connect to people, and so on and so forth. And it was a lot of fun. I love that space, right? But it's also challenging. It's hard,
Yeah.
right? But I had a different experience during that time. Back in 2020, I published a book, and it became a #1 bestseller within 24 hours, right? It was a great response. It was really good.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it was great. It helps when you've got a big network of people that
want to buy
will
your
respond a little bit, right? So yeah, let's be real a bit. But it's unbiased. It's a good book, I think so. But what was interesting was my publisher then started getting me in touch with different platforms for PR, for podcast interviews, for speaking engagements, that type of thing. And all of a sudden I'm getting all of this public attention. And I remember once I was on a show, I was speaking at an event. COVID had just happened, right? So all of a sudden the live stage became a virtual stage. So I'm on a virtual stage at this great event, and there's a number of different speakers there, and people in the audience reached out to me afterwards just to connect, because I guess they wanted to be connected to the author, right? And so people were connecting that way, and I ended up chatting to one guy. He was insistent that we kind of have a conversation, and we ended up speaking on the phone. And he said, as we got talking, I said, one space that I'm really keen to get into as a speaker is universities, like colleges and things. That to me was just kind of a cool place to be an expert and to speak.
Right.
And he goes, I can help you with that. I know a guy that's also a best-selling author, and he is a professor of leadership at this university, and he's just recently published. Let me make you an introduction, right? And he just gave me a referral.
Awesome.
And gave me an introduction, and one thing led to another, and it turned out really good, right? And I found that moment happening over and over again. And the reason I'm sharing this story is because in direct sales, I taught the power of referral marketing,
Right.
but it never came so easy as it did when I was a published author. That just came, it was a different space and environment and niche, and it just happened really differently. So that got me thinking, right? And I, was like, there's got to be a better way to do business, right? Than this, I love the business that I'm in. It's kind of super traditional in the way that it was being executed, but I was like, there's got to be a smarter, better way,
Right.
And prior to me being in that distributor role, I was president of a direct sales company, and we were looking at different ways to pivot way back then, right? And I had all of these stories will piece together, I assure you, right? But I had a remarkable epiphany occur where I was researching different companies. I was looking online at what companies are doing things differently online that I like the way that they're doing business.
Yeah.
Right? So I was kind of just doing my own personal research. Anyway, I had a number of different companies that I liked. One of them was The Honest Company, which is owned by Jessica Alba.
Yeah.
Right. I just liked her model. I liked the product category, but I liked the way that she was handling things online with affiliate marketing and that kind of thing. There was another one that I came across called Shoe Dazzle with Kim Kardashian, right? Which was kind of the aim was to be like a boutique experience, but shopping online. It was always kind of combining the, one good thing with something else, right? Kind of piecing it together. Another one I came across was Fabletics, which is a clothing brand.
Yep.
I'm sure you've heard of them.
Yep.
Right. And that one's with Kate Hudson. And again, they had a cool way of doing it. And I noticed a couple of things in common. And then, and so these were some of the brands that I was looking at. By chance, I learned that one of the owners of each of those companies was the same guy.
Interesting.
Right? And I was like, wait a second. So Brian Lee, who was the chairman, kind of behind the scenes, co-founded. He was the original founder of LegalZoom.
Yeah.
Right? So he founded LegalZoom, and that's obviously I think how he got in there was with Kim Kardashian's father, who was a lawyer.
Interesting.
Right. And as a result of that, he became acquainted with Kim Kardashian. Kind of pivoted a little bit, and then they set up Shoe Dazzle. And he found his niche, found his business model, and ended up setting up these others, right? And so what I started to do was write down what do all of these different companies have in common that I consider work really well and are making them successful. Because the fact that they're all owned by the same guy showed me that this was his business model, right? So all of a sudden, I'm like, I can find out his whole business model and strategy just by seeing what has he replicated across these different businesses. Yeah. And I ended up reaching out to him. I was living in Southern California at the time. He was living in Southern California where the Honest Company offices were. And I reached out and thought, I'm going to shot in the dark, right? Let's see what happens. And I reached out to him on LinkedIn. We've never met before. I'm the president of a direct sales company. I live down here. I love your business models, love what you do. Can I take you to lunch and just pick your brains? Right, that was it. And
That's
I thought,
awesome.
what are the chances of him even responding, right? Anyway, within a week, he replied and said, would love to, right?
Awesome.
So within a week of that, I was up at Jessica Alba's offices in, I think it's like Malibu or somewhere really nice in California. And sat down with this guy and we're having a conversation. We became friends. He endorsed my book. He's on the back of my book there saying, give it a read. Right? So,
That's awesome.
and so we just had a great conversation about what he was doing that just worked so well and what we could take away from that. So so I'm kind of sharing a couple of different stories to bring you to what got me to this position with this clothing brand, right? So I've got these two different scenarios of, I've got the business experience where it's good and it's rewarding, but it's getting tougher because it's kind of entrenched in some old habits and behaviors where the world is kind of changing. And what brought that to light for me was becoming the published author and then finding the principles that I was teaching just worked so much more effortlessly as an author compared to this other space. Yeah. So then I'm thinking about, I've got to do things differently. How do I change? And I look at what this guy's doing and I'm like, I think I can do something like what he's doing and and combine the two, right? Yeah. What works well that I already know, and how can I lean into that and do something unique and different? So I ended up launching a clothing brand because I thought if he can do that with Fabletics, because that was really like a subscription program.
Yeah.
It's not brick and mortar. It was online. It was a subscription model. And if you don't place your order at the end of the month, they already know your preferences, your style, all that kind of stuff. And we'll place an order for you, which you can return if you don't want or what have you, right? And, sure. But they kind of lock everyone in with that model. So I thought there's some ways that we can do business different here. And I think with the background that I had, I wanted to come up with a slightly different model to what I was working with. So I reached out to a friend. We have a conversation. He's an expert in the industry of direct sales. I said, I'm thinking of something completely different, but kind of in this space, but kind of not. And this is going back in maybe 2021, right? So yeah, I'm thinking I've got this new lingo. It's kind of like a super affiliate program, right? This is what I'm thinking, right? This is, it's not affiliate.
You're inventing something.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think I was. Yeah, that's what I thought, right? But I wasn't, right? So it's like affiliate, but it's super affiliate, right? It's cooler, right?
Nice.
It's
I like it.
It's got some extra stuff to it that conventional affiliate marketing doesn't have. And so it's different. We're kind of flipping the traditional compensation plan model on its head,
Right. Sure.
and driving revenue to the top end versus the bottom and all that kind of stuff. And I said, what do you think? Do you think this could work? And he goes, not only do I think it would, you're the third person this month that's come to me with this kind of idea, right? So he's like, so timing's kind of important.
Yeah.
And he goes, what are you thinking of doing? What's your product? And I hadn't thought too heavily, but I thought, well, if Brian Lee can do Fabletics, with subscription programs, with me with focusing on community and all that kind of stuff, I think we could do something really cool. And clothing, I'd worked in nutrition for years and, worked in international markets, and my goodness me, kind of getting those things licensed and registered for resale in multiple markets is complicated. And you got different ingredient mixtures and levels and things that you've got to adjust the formula for different markets. And it's just a heavy lift. I thought, you're not going to have that with clothing, right? So how hard can it be? Right? It's just fabric, right? And you're not going to get all these kind of crazy claims being made. And so I thought, nice and easy. Let's do that. But that was the extent. I mean, the extent of my knowledge of fashion and clothing is I know what I wear, right? I know what I like. I'm not a fashion expert.
Famous last words.
Yeah, famous last words.
How hard can it be?
Yeah, how hard can it be? Yeah. So anyway, a couple of days later, he calls me back and goes, hey, I just had a conversation with a lady. She's wanting to do something similar, but she works in the fabrics world. And not only did she work in the fabrics world, it was like, my goodness me, she was like a legend in the fashion industry.
Wow.
Because her family basically are responsible for pioneering the whole California surf lifestyle culture, right? Wow. So her father's in the Surfing Hall of Fame, and it just, they just celebrated the 100-year anniversary, Hoffman Fabrics.
Oh, that's
and you got Rip Curl doing collaborations with them to celebrate their 100 years, just in recognition of the family.
Yeah.
It's just like, and so, all these great brands. If you've ever worn Quicksilver, Billabong, Rip Curl, Vans, kind of you name it, you've kind of worn their prints, right? So they kind of invented that whole space. So we ended up getting together, and as fate would have it, she lived 30 minutes down the road from me.
Wow.
Right. So we got together and we hit it off. Most importantly, I think emotionally, in terms of values, vision, purpose, and kind of all of that. Right. Important stuff.
Yeah.
We just gelled. She's an awesome, awesome lady. And so we thought, I think we're kind of getting pumped. We should do this thing. Right. Yeah. So off we went. So we jumped into this space we launched a clothing brand. Initially it was activewear and kind of beach wear, resort wear and things. And then we pivoted and moved into Western wear. Mm-hmm. If you're the coastal cowgirl, that's kind of our brand, right?
That's awesome.
And yeah, the Western wear has taken off. We're in, over 50 stores now around the country, and more coming on all the time. Yeah. But yeah, we jumped into that space thinking we knew enough to get started with this super affiliate kind of model that we had, and turned out there was much more to learn than what we thought. So that was great for me, because certainly we were right there at the grassroots with, what is the brand about?
Yeah.
What is our mission? Who is our target audience? How do we represent that in our language and the way that we speak? And in the early days, as we were getting started, I'm doing all the copywriting, because that's kind of one of my skill sets, right? I'm not the fashion designer. We've got a great fashion designer. But I would kind of lean into but then I had to go, I need to sit down and think like a 35-year-old woman for a second, right? What would I say?
The hardest part of copywriting.
That was a really hard thing to do, because I had to talk to my audience is like, hey girls, how's it going, right? Little did they know there's this 50-year-old guy behind the email.
Now we all know.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at all my brands a little bit differently.
A little bit differently now. Yeah.
Oh boy. You've ruined some things for me. Thanks, Ben.
This
that
is
was an
even
education.
before AI, so rest assured it was Ben.
It was me.
Yeah, that's right.
To my shame. But when you're bootstrapping things, that's kind of what you do, right? So that was, but talk about an education, and so we reached out, we hit it off. We went to one of the first big milestones that we got that we just were just blown away with was I just moved up to Utah. We had gone live all of 2 weeks, right? We were kind of 2 weeks in, and my wife follows all the influencers online that a bunch of them, right? And she knew all the Utah influencers, and certainly in Utah, the influencer circuit is tight.
Yes.
Right. It's a tight group. And so we had a friend that was an influencer, former pilot, but has set up a YouTube channel that's got like over 1 million followers on YouTube or what have you. And he goes, he says, my friend, Jordan Page, I'm not sure if you know, do you know Jordan Page?
Yep.
Yeah. So he's like, she's got her summer soiree that she hosts every year. It's a big event. That's where they get all the influencers together from Utah. Well, a bunch of them, a big chunk of them, right? Sure. Will come together, and they get some small local brands that they will bring along to sponsor the event. And this is a great way to put brands and influencers together. And it's just a good, it's kind of like, a chance to dress up and have a good time, but also to network and to help each other out and so on and so forth. It's a really kind of cool concept, right? Sure. And he's like, I think I could maybe get you in there.
Oh, wow.
Right. And I was like, oh my gosh, if we get into this, right, we'll just talk about hit the ground running.
Was he invited, the pilot guy?
He didn't even go. Oh. Yeah, he wasn't going. But he's like, but I can get you there. I can get you there.
Hey, that works, man.
But it works.
As a true pilot, getting you from A to B, but they don't necessarily
he wasn't
they don't get to go on vacation with you.
Yeah,
so I get you.
But so anyway, so obviously we're new. The brand is just getting started.
Right.
And the big part of our story was we want to connect with influencers because we want this model to kind of be, work with the affiliate program, right? And so sure enough, anyway, long story short, we get in, and with a mad scramble, we've got a week to get things organized. Let's get there. We ended up at the Page summer soiree, right? And
that's awesome.
And what was cool was we went in there and I said, okay, if we could get, gosh, man, if we could leave this event with just 10 influencers, that want to be affiliates with us, that would just be, wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah.
That would be a huge victory, because all of these guys, just all different shapes and sizes in terms of their audience, their reach, their size, of followerships and things, but it was just great. And so we went there, and at the end of the night, we had, I think, close to 100
oh my God.
Of the influencers signed up as affiliates with us.
Well, that exceeded your goal of 10.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We came back home. We're like, what just happened? Yeah. Like the videographer that was there came up and said, because all of the different brands were kind of in a horseshoe. Yeah. Right. And he's like, and of course they got a videographer there to film and kind of do a highlights reel afterwards. And he's like, we couldn't really get to you all that much tonight. Sorry, Ben. I apologize, because you were constantly swamped by everyone. It's like,
great. What a great problem.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm good with that. Yeah, we did just fine.
We're good.
Yeah, we did just fine.
And so that was resort and beach wear. And you pivoted away from that, or do you still have some of that?
Well,
today?
we still do. Yeah, we still do. The active wear is still doing very well.
Oh, okay.
It still does good. And we have some active wear sets that are also kind of branded within the ranch gear as well, right? So awesome. Because we might kind of cross over with some of the prints and things like that. So. But it worked great. And I'll tell you what, there was, maybe this is appropriate to share or not. We had a couple of girls come with us that were like models that would wear our active wear that would hopefully grab people's attention to say, hey, we're interested, that brand looks great on you. Obviously, there's only so much I can wear. I'm not wearing, I'm not going to sell it very good.
You might look great in leggings.
I'm closing my eyes.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, you don't look right.
It's not working.
Right. That's not working for me.
But one of the girls, lovely girl, right? And if I can say this appropriately, she's a gym girl, every day is leg day for her, right? So when she wore these leggings, her backside was a prominent feature
Awesome.
of just how she was walking in the room. People would notice.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying
It's a part of today's culture. It's a big emphasis for whatever reason or how it's happened. It's a big emphasis. I don't know if you agree, Caylee.
And as a girl, I mean, being completely candid, all leggings don't make your bum look nice.
No, they don't.
Right.
So when you see leggings that make your bum look nice, you go, hey, where did you get those?
Yeah.
That's just such a girl thing to ask. I mean, men don't generally worry about where you got.
Yeah, you don't worry about
shirt,
compression and
whatever.
whether it's...
I just put on this shirt. My wife bought it for me. I don't know where it's from.
Exactly.
But girls, that's huge.
You just defined my entire outfit.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks,
but
Caylee.
Julie did great, Mac. Looks awesome.
yeah. But she had these influencers were coming up to her and they were just going, you need a QR code on that backside, right? Because if you had a QR code on that, you would sell loans.
That's hilarious.
Right? And what was funny was, because we were saying, look, if you're interested in being an affiliate with us, sign up tonight and we'll send you out a free legging or a free outfit or something like that.
Awesome.
And everyone was going, I want what she's wearing.
Right.
I want what she's wearing.
Yeah.
Her particular set sold more than everything else that night.
That's
and it was so that in itself was an interesting learning curve, right? In terms of marketing and branding and that kind of thing, and what sells and what doesn't. But so all of a sudden that kind of burst us onto the influencer space a little bit and gave us some people to work with and learn from it. And some did great and some didn't. Yeah. And, I expected everyone to take off and I'd, be making millions by the end of the first quarter and all that kind of stuff. And of course it didn't pivot in that direction. But we certainly learned a ton as a result of getting those connections with those different influencers. And then from there, influencers refer to influencers because they're all connected to different ones as well.
Yeah.
And networking your network became, just an important skill to leverage there.
Right.
But,
so, something you said at the very beginning of the podcast, though, it was, okay, how you start isn't necessarily how you always finish, right? You got to pivot. So walk us through thinking about the digital marketing aspect of how, because you're an online brand, right? You're not you did mention now you're in some boutique stores and but I don't know if that's little store. They're not big brands, right? We're not in Target or anything like that, or
no, but strategically, for strategic reasons.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, but think about the digital ad stuff. What did you do in the very beginning that you're no longer doing, and what are you doing now that you didn't start off doing? Like from a digital, especially advertising, because everyone's trying to attract new customers. Yeah, right. Especially in direct sales, people want to attract new customers, but it's a different world out there. And it's changing fast. Yeah. So is there anything that you did specifically in the very beginning that you're not necessarily doing, or are you doing it better? Maybe you're like, it's working, but we could do it better.
Yeah. I think there's some things that we did that work and some things that didn't. Yeah. And so it's really been a combination, right? So we started thinking kind of a singular channel of growth would be through influencers. And the more we got involved in e-commerce, the more we realized that's not how online brands work. Mm-hmm. It's an omni-channel approach, right? So we did start to pivot. So at first we put all our eggs in one basket and said, the strategy is we've got an incredible super affiliate program, right?
Of course.
Not just affiliates, super affiliate.
I love the branding, super affiliate.
Yeah, super affiliate.
Wow, he's a copywriter. Okay, great.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Image is coming.
Yeah, it's a super affiliate. So we had the super, and so we were like, why? Yeah, this will just do so well. Influencers have not seen something like this before, so they're going to jump all over it. And what we learned was influencers think, act, and behave very differently to direct sellers, for example. Right? They're about their brand, their content, their story, and they will promote 100 different brands. That's right. So whereas direct sellers are all about the company, right, and they are loyal to one brand, ideally. Yeah. Right. And they are working that and they stick with them for years. And so there was a lot of things there that we didn't fully anticipate that was a bit of a learning curve there. So we started there and then we kind of pivoted initially and we ended up becoming, like I said, omni-channel was our strategy. So from there, it became evolutionary. And we said, look, we need to get more reach. We can do that through online advertising. So we started with some paid ads. And again, you kind of start small and kind of build out and see what works and what doesn't. There's a lot of A/B testing that goes on in terms of content styles, carousels versus video, this video message versus that message, this audience versus that audience, and then this product versus that. And you end up really getting focused on a lot of the details, right? In terms of all of a sudden, having what became an e-commerce brand, you then start to look at your photography and you go, okay, our shots need to be different. Right. And now I'm shooting for e-commerce versus, because when we first started out, again, bootstrapping it was friends and family were the models, right? This lady from work looks like she's a nice lady, right? Come on in, let's put this stuff on. What am I doing? Where am I going?
Yeah, you should.
Get in there, right? You'll be great, right? And some did great, in there, and others really did not, right? But you learn that quickly because one of the good things about e-commerce is everything is measurable.
Yeah.
Right. Everything. So if you're seeing people come to your site, they're responding well to the ad, then they come to the site, but they're not clicking through to the shopping cart.
Right.
What are they seeing when they get to our website that isn't working for them?
Yep.
Right. And then you start to look at that and evaluate and go, where are we losing people on the homepage? And now all of a sudden the strategy for the homepage changes. I've got 2 or 3 swipes of the fingers before I lose them. What in terms of hierarchy goes where and why? And then how does that show up there in terms of brevity of message, high impact visuals, all that type of thing to make sure you engage and lock them in.
Which is also ever changing too.
Which is ever changing.
So once you get it, you got to switch it up in 30, 60, 90 days too.
Exactly. So. Yeah. So we then started changing our whole strategy with photography and photo shoots. And next thing you know, I'm organizing photo shoots for, clothing brands and that kind of thing. Never done that before, but I find myself in the studio. I'm there with photographers. I'm booking venues and things, and we've got models coming in, and I'm there steaming the clothes, getting them all ready in the behind the scenes. Okay,
Ben was in the trenches.
Put that one out, totally in the trenches, right? And pulling my wife in, and she's going, mix that one with that one and have that look out there, and that looks great. And let's get these combos going together. And we're looking, and you're thinking a few steps in advance, of course, it's because you got every angle that you need to see from an e-commerce, from a shop perspective, and then things that you can use for social media as well, and make sure you're recording your behind the scenes shots that you can post on social to get engagement, all that kind of stuff. So all of a sudden we're thinking very differently within a few short months. So then, like I said, then we leaned into paid ads, and that was a big learning curve because, again, when you're doing it all yourself, this is the thing that I would share that's important for listeners, right, is when you do it yourself, you're all in, right? So when you say I'm gonna put some money into my ad spend, you really want results. And when we didn't know, we'd not played with paid ads before, right? And so we're going, what is like $1,000 a month a good thing, or is that how does that work? Right. And so let's try $500 as a starting point. Right. And I think that'll be good. And it's like, man, we're picking up ones and twos here. What's going on? It's like, you need to invest more. Right. You need to put more money in. And so that was evolutionary. Even with little things like that, how much should I spend on a monthly basis in order for the metrics to be strong enough for me to have a meaningful evaluation or analysis of the data?
And 500 didn't do it, right? That didn't give you any data, right?
That was not giving me any data.
I think that's huge. I want we'll say it again though, Ben, because I want the listeners to really sink in that sometimes you need more investment in the very beginning so you can get some real results, even if they're poor results, so you can evaluate the data and really understand it. Because 500 didn't work for you guys.
No.
That's huge. That is such a big learning. It's something I just learned. I love that.
Yeah. And I've seen that in traditional things as well, going offline for a sec, right?
Sure.
Where I've had people that I've been coaching and working with, where they're talking to people building their business, one-on-one, face-to-face.
Right.
Yeah.
And they've said to me, I just don't get it. I'm talking to people, but I'm just not getting results. And I'm like, what? So we'll kind of help elaborate. And they're like, well, no one's signing up to my business. No one's buying my product or having. I'm like, no one? Right? You're talking to people like no one's responding? Yeah. That's a big statement, that. What do you mean no one?
Yeah.
Give me the numbers, like, on a monthly basis, how many people you're talking to. And it's like, well, like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you could be saying all the right things. You're technically doing the right stuff. You're just not doing enough of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so kind of the first point of feedback there was do more so that you can analyze better.
Yeah.
And to your point, Mac, even if the feedback is bad, then you know it's bad. But in the meantime, if you only do a little bit, you don't have enough feedback to know whether it's good or bad or not, and you're just left with a big question mark.
Right. And online, I mean, talk about a completely different sandbox. How many times do you guys scroll past something and you're like, doesn't resonate?
Yeah.
So putting money into that is an investment to see what is working and what does resonate. Is a time suck for sure.
Yeah.
I had a good friend actually. Sorry, man. I just had a good friend. He wanted to couch direct sales in a different time. Said like, hey, how many years have you been doing this? He said, what if we just measured it on how many conversations? You know, I've been in it for, I don't know, about 10,000 conversations. How long have you been in it? Oh, about 400. So then we know. You could be in it for 400 conversations and been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah.
The years don't matter. It's really the conversations.
Yeah.
Or the touches if you're doing, you know, digital ads and things. It is the impressions and the connections, but especially in the direct sales in the traditional sense, it really comes down to how many conversations have you had in your lifetime. And I'm telling you, across the board in every organization I've been in, those who've had the most typically are making the most money.
Yeah.
That's just how it works. Now, maybe they did a lot of that work before, maybe they're not doing as much now, but overall, they're the ones that have been doing the most conversations, most impressions, pivoted to new digital ad strategies, whatever. But
exactly.
It's conversations.
There is a saying that we all know and often live by that is a lie, right? And that is practice makes perfect.
Right.
What? It's not
You're
true.
blowing my mind.
Perfect practice makes perfect.
Right.
I can practice badly and entrench myself in bad habits and do a lot of the right thing the wrong way and get poor results.
Yeah.
Right. So perfect practice makes perfect. Now, of course, you don't get perfect in your practice straight away.
Right.
You've got to practice badly first and evaluate your performance and seek to improve and get better until you get to the point where you go, okay, you know, for us in this particular scenario, it was like, okay, we increased the ad spend. We pulled in some experts that knew how to do ads really well. And I'll get to that point in a second because we learned something valuable there as well.
Yeah.
And then we found what worked, and then you double down, right? And then okay, that's working well. I'm going to do more of that, and I'm just going to get consistent at it and get better at it. And then you find, so you're constantly weaving as you're exploring, learning, evaluating, teaming up with experts and what have you, getting other people in the room that you can learn from, and then doubling down. You know, and the thing I wanted to come back to was one thing that we learned the hard way when we first started the process of kind of building our team together and everything was okay, we want to go into digital marketing. So let's go to digital marketing experts, right? But the reality is you need to niche down, right? It was a little bit like, because what we learned was we want people that know digital marketing and that also know fashion.
Yep.
Right. And that's really important. And ideally know our kind of fashion.
Yeah.
Right. So you're almost going 3 levels. It's not just, I want a marketing expert.
Right. I
want a marketing expert that knows fashion and ideally knows our audience and knows our tools and our platform so that they can do that well. Because otherwise it's like saying, I want to learn an instrument. I want to learn how to play the piano. You play the guitar. You're a musician. So can you teach me music?
Yeah.
It's like, but I want to learn the piano. You're not going to teach me much piano.
No.
Right. And so we kind of learned that with agencies that we partnered with marketers that we initially pulled on board, that initially they had particular skills, but we needed to niche down.
Yeah.
And that became really important because it's all of a sudden, because I think we're so bombarded now with content online in terms of a digital environment that unawares we're all becoming a little bit more demanding and have higher standards of what we see and what we sit on, right? And algorithms are becoming more intelligent that, boy, like on TikTok, you sit on something for a couple of seconds. Oh, okay, the algorithm says you're a fan of that, I'll give you more.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So, and it knows exactly what you're looking for over time, right? So whether we like it or not, the algorithms start to feed us what we want.
Yeah.
You know, and so that means you've got to really know your audience and build out that profile, not just in terms of demographics, going, okay, obviously it's women's apparel, so it's women between the ages of 35 and 55, this kind of disposable income because we're at this price point. These are some obvious points, but you've got to lean into psychographics too, in terms of personality and all of that type of thing, because you want to talk their language so that when you're looking like, so that when they see your brand, they see themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and so we learned to have to, you know, and that's one of the reasons that we actually started to do really well in the Western wear, because my business partner, Robin, had a huge background as a horse cutter.
Yeah.
And it was in the Hall of Fame for just being an absolute legend in that space.
That's awesome.
And she's got awards coming out of her ears for that. So she knew people, she knew places, she knew things, she knew that whole world. And that was a big learning point for us, was rather than leaning into her dad's experience with surfwear, we leaned into her experience with horses and that space and the Western world, and we showed up there very differently, and we could speak to people and they could see themselves.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it took off, and the Western wear became a different story. So I think learning to niche down, really know your audience, and then talk to them and know how to talk to them in a way that makes them want to listen, you know, online, that becomes a game changer. It's laser focus that you need now in order to grab their attention. But when you get it right and you hit that target, boy, you hit it big time. Yeah. And then it blows up. Whereas beforehand, you're kind of shooting all over the place, putting the hours in, but getting next to nothing back. Yeah. Right. So that was a huge learning curve for us.
I love this. This has been an awesome episode, but let's boil it down. What if I'm out there? I only have Facebook to follow my family. Yeah. I'm 55 years old. Yeah. I hear what you're saying. I want to start. I want to do it. I can't keep doing it the same way. Right? I'm just getting the onesies and twosies. I want to go bigger. Yeah. I want to start doing some digital. I want to get my digital presence out there or something. So if you take a 55-year-old Mac, I'm not 55, but if you take a 55-year-old Mac,
just to clarify,
who only has Facebook to see his family, so I am online, but not really. Yeah. Where would I start, you guys? What are some things that I could do right now, knowing that I love what you're saying? Like what we're talking about it's gold, and it really is the next step for me, and I want it to be my next step. So I've got my desire. It's part of my vision board, whatever. But what do I actually do? What have you guys seen?
Yeah, I would say step one, maybe Ben, you have, different advice here, but I would say step one, if you're out there, you're looking to get on social media, you're not yet on all of the platforms, because I do think they're all very different. Yeah. Download the apps, create the account, and just observe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just see what's going on. Yeah.
It's digital marketing is a broad subject, right? It's because there are, like you just said, Caylee, even within social media, which is a section of digital marketing, you've got subsections of that. Yep. Learning how to market and show up on Facebook is very different to Instagram, very different to TikTok, very different to LinkedIn, very different to Twitter or X, right? So they've got different audiences, different styles of content, different expectations. And so that can be overwhelming, right?
And organic and paid content are both different. Yeah. Adding a layer in there. So
so it can be overwhelming. So I think first of all, you're in the right place in saying I have a desire to begin. That's the starting point. So I would say first off, don't be overwhelmed, because I've seen ladies. We've had influencers in my clothing brand, for example. I'm thinking of one lady where she's wearing our activewear and she does exercises for people, I think like kind of 50s plus, like seniors, right? And she's a senior herself. She's got white hair, right? And she's in her active gear, and she's got like 150,000 followers on Instagram, right? So she's older than the 55-year-old that has not gotten started, but she also got started too. Yeah. Right. And so I would say don't look at your current experience or your age as a barrier. Everyone that gets started starts at ground zero. Yeah. And that's okay. Right. Yeah. So don't get overwhelmed. Don't go, I'm too old for this. You're never too old. Mm-hmm. My conviction is my best years are ahead of me, regardless of my age. I want to be, when I'm 85 years old, saying my best years are in front of me. Right. Yeah. Right. So if we have that perspective, we can always learn new things. We can always develop new skills. My wife is just about to graduate college, get her second degree, marriage and family therapy, right?
That's amazing.
She's in her mid-40s. She's got 8 kids. She's busy at home, and she's going, I want to learn new stuff. She started at ground zero, and her plan is to get her own clinic and practice and all that kind of stuff. But you can start where you stand and move forward. So I would say, I like your point, Caylee, of going, let's just download the apps. Let's just have a look. And rather than go online to be entertained, go online to learn.
Yeah. And be inspired. I mean, it's cool once you see, I mean, I don't know if, you guys are, on TikTok and scrolling around and looking, and my algorithm probably looks different than both of yours, but seeing people that are my age or younger than me that are multimillionaires from posting content.
Yeah.
Is really cool. Get ready with me. Let's do my makeup and put my outfit on. I'm like, wow, I do that every single day.
Yeah.
I could be creating content from it and making a lot of money doing so, or monetizing it and having brand deals. So that, I mean, is really cool absolutely. And exciting.
I'm going to brag on my wife a little bit here on that point, because she loves DIY, right?
What does DIY stand for?
Do it yourself.
Oh yeah, good.
All right. So any projects around the house that need doing, she does it. I don't. I do the cooking in our house. I play with the kids. I work with women's fashion on the side, and she
copyrights for 35-year-old women.
There you go.
Blowing my mind here.
And she works with lumber, right? And her favorite place is Home Depot or Lowe's.
Yeah.
Right?
Big fan of Home Depot.
But she would go online a lot onto Instagram and look at these other women that had Instagram channels that did DIY, right? Because that was an interest of hers, and she started following a lot of them because that was of an interest to her. And then after a while, she's like, I think, I could probably do that, right? And so she ended up setting up her own Instagram channel. She's got, I think, close to 34,000 followers now. Wow. She's been on television as a local influencer, giving tips and tricks online. And she's had brand deals where people have reached out to her and said, hey, we'll give you these curtains if you post about it, and all that kind of stuff going on. And she started from ground zero. Right. So I think go online, have a look, see what interests you.
I think that's important. Circle that, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, but see what interests you, because it does require more time than you initially think, right? Because you've got to be familiar with, because when she started, she'd been following people for so long that she knew what style of content to create,
right?
Because she was watching it a lot, right? So I think that helped. But another friend of mine, she did something great. She was a stay-at-home mom. She wanted to learn these skills. She didn't have any skills at all in this area. And she went to night school and did a night class on blogging and SEO.
Yeah.
Right. So she found her niche. She found a space where she's like, I'm an introvert. I don't want to show up on social media.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not really good at talking to people, but I want to learn this kind of stuff. So she looked at the different options, looked at herself, looked at how she wanted to show up, and rather than going, oh, I can't do that social media stuff, I'm out, right? Or I'm too old, I'm out, right? She goes, I can't do that, but I could do this. And then she went and paid for a simple course that was a few weeks, or maybe a few months, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a degree.
Right.
And it was in her spare time. And she reached a point where she was making $5,000 a month in residual income, ongoing, repeat income. And she's like, and I haven't spoken to any of my customers. It's all online, and it works just great. Yeah. And that was awesome. So I think find what works for you in terms of personality fit, and then learn about it. I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah. And I remember back in 2011, I had this grandmother. She was a young grandmother, and she was like 50, 55, 50, I think 54, 55. And she wanted to start doing some online stuff. And so all she did is she started posting, pictures of her dancing and videos of her dancing with her grandchildren. That was it. Yeah. And all of a sudden someone in a comment like, what, it's so fun, young grandmother dancing, and guess what she did? That was her. That was it. That was her niche. She was the dancing young grandmother, and that's all of her content, and it blew up, back in those days, blowing up. Like, she had 20,000 followers and people, and that fed her business.
Yeah.
How do you stay so young? And well, I take this and I use this, and
it becomes organic.
It becomes organic.
Yeah.
And it was all from a comment. Young grandmother dances. She's like, well, okay, I love doing that, so I'm just going to try that. And it's funny how there are people out there looking for that want that, and are, so excited for you to be someone that dances with their grandchildren.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're saying is find something that interests you, but then you really got to just go for it. You got to give it a go. And I think Ben's story is so telling. You went here, and then that's not working. Then I went here, and that's not working. And this one's kind of working, so we'll keep doing this. But we still got to do something because we have bigger dreams.
Yeah, there
You're
was
not
so
going to
many.
get it right. So just go, just start. Once you kind of get it, it's time to just actually make a post or something.
And the coolest part, isn't that the coolest part about life, is it's never too late to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
Did you think 10 years ago that you would start a clothing brand?
Oh, absolutely not.
Or did Kim think that, she was going to do
how
a
scared
DIY
I was
Instagram?
when I organized and hosted my own fashion show?
Oh.
Right, where we had a catwalk, like a runway, and models all coming in.
Would show us what they were doing, actually, Ben. Would you stand up and please? Would you tell us show us exactly?
Let
how
me
that
get
worked?
up there and strut my stuff right
What
now.
does your model walk
Yes.
look
Yeah.
like?
Let me see
But
that.
but I mean, the brand's been in LA Fashion Week now, and
awesome.
Congratulations, man. Honestly, that's really cool. And congratulations to all the entrepreneurs out there. That whether you're doing fashion brands or direct sales, or you have just a product that you love, finding your way through it. That's awesome. So that's really cool.
But we walked confidently up dead end streets multiple times. Right. There's maybe a good point to kind of close on as we wrap up. Is this is definitely the way. Okay, I'm going to give this a go. This is it for sure.
Yeah.
We've done our research. Everything is theory at this point, right? Everything is, but this is the way to do it. And we march confidently up that way, dead end. So why is this not working? And again, there is power in ownership. Right? I have learned so much more owning my own brand compared to running someone else's.
Yeah.
Right. Now, obviously, it's transferable, which is great.
Sure.
But when you've got ownership, my goodness, the lesson comes in a much deeper and more profound way. Because then all of a sudden it's like, I don't stop at the dead end street and go, well, I guess that didn't work. Right. I'm invested. It's death ground, right? You burned your ships.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm in this. We're going to make it work. If this isn't the way, what do I do next? And so you reverse back out and you go another way and you keep doing it. So for some of you that are going, okay, I'm going to give this digital marketing stuff a go.
Yeah.
Maybe the way is I'm just going to start out with Facebook, right? And I'm going to learn that. But to Caylee's point, I'm going to look and learn from the perspective of educating myself versus simply being entertained by the reels, right?
Yeah.
Which is a different approach altogether. I'm going to start there, but you may go down that path and in a couple of months go, that doesn't work for me either. Right. What you don't want to do as an entrepreneur is give yourself enough runway to get it right once and win.
Yeah.
If that's your runway, that is frightening.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You've got to give yourself enough distance, enough track to go, I've got enough space to get it wrong and get it wrong and get it wrong until I eventually achieve my goal.
And you will.
And you will.
Yeah.
The greatest quality of entrepreneurialism is persistence. Right. And so, be willing to get it wrong, be willing to step back a little bit, reevaluate, try another path. Yeah. And that's okay. Maybe you think you land your brand message and then you find actually, no, it's not. We started out with resort and we've moved much more into Western, for example. Right.
Yeah.
So what a different space that is. Right. It's so, but it worked.
Yeah.
So give it a go, have some fun. Don't block yourself in a corner.
Huge.
And the world's your oyster. You don't need to stick in the past and go, this is all too new for me.
Yeah.
Not at all. There's always people older doing more.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a great point. It's a really good point. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
It's been great.
It's been a great episode, Ben. Thanks so much for sharing that story. I mean, Ben and I have had several conversations and I've never heard that story before. So hearing that and hearing your story is really inspiring. And I hope you guys can get some nuggets out of that and just start.
Give it a go.
That's all you have to do.
Jump in. Cool. Take care, everyone.
See ya.